Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Greg from the Kentwood branch, and I am happy to be bringing you another Thursday night offering in our Summer Wonder. Tonight is going to be Backyard Myths and Legends, brought to you from the Outdoor Discovery Center. Before I bring Sarah and Andrea in, I just want to talk about a couple of upcoming programs next week. On July 14th, Tuesday, 2 p.m. for ages 11 and up, we have Getting Crafty with Miss Tammy. She is going to show you all kinds of fun things you can do-it-yourself crafts with household items. And on July 16th, 1 week from today, we're going to have Girls Who Code. And that is going to be 6:30 to 7:30, where kids 6 and up can learn coding. That is a registration required, so go to kdl.org to register for that. And that's where you can find all of our great events. But right now, like I said, it is Backyard Myths and Legends, where Sarah and Andrea will be telling us some stories and learn the truth about the animal world just beyond our back door. And I'm going to bring them into the studio right now. Hello, Sarah and Andrea. How are you today? Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
And you guys are from the Outdoor Discovery Center, which is in Holland, Michigan, correct?
Correct.
And that is a nature preserve, and there's like several miles of trails that you can walk, all kinds of different habitats and whatnot, and you're open to the public right now, isn't that correct?
Yes, our park itself is open 24, dawn to sunrise to sunset every single day. We have trails, we also have nature playscapes. We also have a bird of prey center where you can see live birds who were injured in the wild. And then we also just opened this month our visitor center in a limited capacity. So we are doing things. We are here.
Excellent. So a great opportunity to get outside during these times, right? And you can, and I'm going to put their website on there so you can learn more about them right there at outdoordiscovery.org. But meanwhile, you have a great show for us today. So I'm just going to let you take it away, and I'll see you afterwards. For those of you watching, if you put comments in the section there, we're going to address those after, and they'll answer any and all questions after the show. So everybody enjoy, and I will see you in a little bit. Thank you so much for being here.
All right, thank you. We're so excited. Just real quick, I'm Andrea, and this is Sarah, and we have for you today some of our live animals. We have a variety of captive reptiles and amphibians that we care for, and we also have some birds of prey. And we're going to introduce you to those animals today, and we want to talk about their myths and their legends. There are a lot of misconceptions out in the world. You see an animal, you hear a funny story, you wonder if that's true, but we're here to break some of those myths for you. We're going to start, we're just going to jump right in. It's going to be explosions the whole way. It's going to be bang, 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 bang. We're going to start with my favorite animal, right? We're going to start big. We're actually starting small. And my favorite animal because they have so many cool adaptations. And I'm going to pick him up. And you might think right away that that is a mistake. Because what I'm about to hold for your viewing pleasure is a toad. All right, you guys. So, toads. You might think, why is she holding a toad? The very first thing that she's going to get is warts. If you look at a toad's body, they have bumps all over their bodies. And the main misconception here is if I touch these bumps, I'm going to get warts. And I'm here to tell you that is absolutely not true. These bumps are here for a very important reason. This is an adaptation that's very important in nature. It is called camouflage. Lots of different animals have different colors, textures, and patterns in the wild that help them blend in. Now, a toad is an amphibian, the type of animal that lives in both the land and the water. They start their life as like a gooey little egg in the water, and then they change, they metamorphosize into an adult. This guy leaves the pond and lives mostly on the land. Now, in order to successfully survive on the land, he needs to have these bumps on his body to help him blend in with that texture. They can't get a virus wart, and they can't give it to a different species like humans. But even though those aren't actual warts, they're an important adaptation for him. He does have several cool adaptations. That's why he's my favorite. There's just a long list of neat things that toads can do. So my first favorite adaptation, this is a big female, by the way. I know that because when I pick her up, she doesn't make any noise. A cute pose there. The boys are the ones that like to sing. And when she gets picked up by a giant like me, and it's a very scary experience, she might try to prevent me from eating her by peeing all over me. It's a pretty gross experience, but think about it. If you're about to take a bite of the most delicious cheeseburger you've ever seen, and right before you bite into that cheeseburger, it pees in your mouth, you're probably going to let that hamburger run away, correct? That's one adaptation that I really like. The other is they make it very difficult to eat them in their size. Now, when I touch her here, you can tell she's very spongy, very pokey. When I touch her here, she's very hard because she's a vertebrate animal. She has bones in her body, but she can blow her body up really big in order to make it just hard to eat. If that cheeseburger turned into a balloon or a watermelon really big, you couldn't get your mouth around it, you would probably spit it out and try to eat something else. Those are two of my favorite adaptations there. And then the last one is kind of a double whammy. She's got two big bumps right here. Let's see, one here and one here. They're bigger than all the other bumps. Those are called parotid glands. They're different than the other bumps. And inside of that gland, she keeps poison. Now, that does not mean that if I touch her and then stick my finger in my mouth that I'm going to die, but it does mean I'll have a really upset tummy. And the upset tummy thing is kind of like food poisoning, right? If you go to a restaurant and you order a bad slice of pizza and you have a bad night where your tummy bothers you all night, oh, a little pee for us there. That's nice. You're not going to go back to that same restaurant to eat that same piece of pizza, right? So if a bird eats a toad and gets sick, they're not going to eat another toad later. It's a very smart adaptation. And then my last favorite thing is that toads are just really cute. Look how cute they are. Those big eyes. Those eyes are super important. They're visual hunters. They like to eat things like insects. And if it's not moving, they're not going to be able to find it. So they need big eyes. And the muscles that they have in those eyes are actually very important in eating those insects because they use the same muscles in their eyes to swallow. All right, so he is an amphibian. There's our other amphibians you might know about, like frogs, and the very most forgotten, the salamanders. So don't forget about those amphibians. We're going to move on to our next group of animals. Let me put this guy down real quick. Or maybe just hand him this hair. The next group of animals actually has a lot in common with amphibians. Amphibians are famous for having soft skin that's kind of permeable. They have a metamorphosis where they go from a cootie egg to an adult. And they are cold-blooded, right? They get their energy from the environment around them. This next group of animals has a few things in common, but they're just different enough for their own group. Instead of having soft skin, they have hard skin. They do not have metamorphosis. Their babies look like miniature moms and dads. But they are also cold-blooded. They get their energy from the environment around them. Do you guys know what animal I'm talking about? Maybe Miss Sarah has another clue for us.
So this is part of one of the animals that Miss Andrew was talking about. So at this point, you can probably guess that we're going to talk about turtles next. And this belongs to a turtle that unfortunately is no longer alive. But it's really cool because we can see parts of the turtle that we couldn't if they were out and walking around. So you can see the back of this turtle. This used to belong to a snapping turtle. It's very, very large. This was a very old turtle. Snapping turtles can live to be about 70 years old. They get very, very big, but their bottom shell that covers their stomach is not quite as big as that back shell. It leaves a lot of their body exposed. You have their head coming out here, and big legs and arms, and a big long tail that would come out that would be exposed if a predator ever tried to come after this turtle and try and eat them. Now at this size, that's probably not very many animals unless it's injured, but looking at this shell, we can see that this has something else in common with that frog. It's that you can see the vertebrae, you can see the backbone. So that backbone is attached to the shell. Now, sometimes in cartoons, we'll see turtles take their shell off. I think Franklin sometimes will take his shell off, put his pajamas on, brush his teeth, and go to bed. But that would be the same as us taking out our backbone before we go to bed. And that's not something that we do regularly. You can't really do anything without your backbone. So that is not something that real turtles outside of cartoonland can do. But this shell is a very important part of the turtle's life. Snapping turtles especially like to live at the bottom of a pond, so you can see how flat and dark this shell is. It helps them to blend in with the dead leaves and sticks and things that are on the bottom of the pond. And they like to bury themselves as much as they can in the mud and just have their head sticking out. And so when a fish swims by, they can reach out really quickly and snap to grab them. So that's one way they get their name, the snapper, snapping turtle, is that they have to snap quickly to get their food. It's also because that's how they have to protect themselves. If you didn't have the right armor and you were exposed, then you might need a way to defend yourself. Now, I do have a snapping turtle to share with you today. The one that I'm sharing with you is a baby snapping turtle. So this one is not even a year old yet. You can see about how big around this shell is compared to that last one. And that stomach shell.
Compare and contrast. This is a lot of growing to do.
They need some time to do that. So you can see on this turtle's face, its nose is sort of shaped like a big snorkel. It's very pointed. And so that helps the turtle when they come up for water, because turtles, they just hold their breath. They can't breathe underwater like fish can. They don't have gills. So when this turtle is at the bottom of the pond and he runs out of air, he has to come up to the top, and he can just stick his nose up out of the water with that long tongue, or that long neck of his, and then he can take a breath and swim back down. Now you can see how long he's stretching his neck out. That's something they can use if they ever are on land and they get flipped over. They can use their head to push their body back around so that they're flipped that way. You can also see moving his big claws, maybe not so big claws, around, trying to get away from me, but they are webbed feet. So this is an aquatic turtle, a turtle that lives in the water, and that webbed footing helps them when they need to swim. It helps them to go faster. So turtles also have this misconception from stories like the tortoise and the hare, where they're really slow and lethargic, and they take a long time to do anything. But turtles, like this turtle, getting into the water would be a very, very fast animal. Something else, if you ever see turtles in the wild and you see one with a very long tail, the tail is about as long as the shell is, that's probably a snapping turtle, and you probably need to stay away from it, because these turtles get their name from that hard beak that they have on their face. It's not like a bird beak, but they don't have teeth that they're biting with. They just have a hard part of their mouth that can latch onto something. We often see these around egg laying time when females go up and they have to use those big claws to dig a nice deep hole. They find the perfect spot and they lay their eggs, and then they'll leave them alone. And those eggs will hatch later on, like this guy did.
And he probably hatched like this spring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's a little guy.
Yeah. One of my favorite stories, so I'm gonna pop in here.
Yeah.
I'm from the South. I don't know if you guys could tell. And one of my favorite ridiculous myths about snapping turtles is that when they bite you, when they can bite, they're very powerful jaws. I mean, if a full-size one like that adult one that was there, showed you, did try to bite my finger, it could bite my finger off. That is 100% true. The moral of that story is don't put your fingers in front of snapping turtles. But there is this really silly story that if a snapping turtle bites you, it won't let go, which is actually a really good strategy and a little bit true, because if you're determined, you can just hold on. But the story is that they won't let go until it thunders. And that is absolutely not true. I think the moral of that story is they needed to be startled, something to make them lose their concentration so they would let go. In that case, you could probably, I don't know, like poke them a little bit or something. So they do not bite until it thunders. That is not a true story.
Put this guy away.
Yeah.
Now, the snapper is not the only turtle that we have in the water. Living in Michigan, we have lots of beautiful water turtles. You can see this shell. It's kind of similarly shaped to that snapper. It's nice and smooth. It gives it less drag when it's trying to go through the water, so that when it needs to go fast, it can go a lot faster. This one's also a lot more colorful than that last turtle was. They want to hide at the bottom of the pond. And these turtles spend a lot more time at the surface of the water. So they have a lot more coloring on their body. And it's one of the ways that they get their name. This is called the red-eared slider. And you can see right up here, it's going to get scared when I put my finger there, or shy, I guess. But you can see that red coloring around where his ear would be. Now, they don't have big flappy ears like we do, but they can hear through the vibrations through that part in their skin. This looks very similar to our painted turtles that we have here in Michigan. So you can see lots of different yellows. It has striping all over. Its head is what it's showing us right now. Maybe its arms and legs will come out a little bit later.
She wouldn't get them out for me earlier.
feeling shy today. But you can see on the edge of her hand that she's tucking away. She also has those long nails that can help her when she's crawling up. If anybody has ever been to a pond, you'll often see these kinds of turtles all lined up along a log, and this is called basking. This is something that's very important for turtles to do because they're cold-blooded, like Miss Andrea talked about. They need the sunlight in order to have energy. If they don't have energy, they can't hunt. If they can't hunt, then they don't have a very good time. So when they lay around in the sun, they're absorbing that. They have this dark color to help them absorb that heat, and then they can swim around and catch what they need to in order to eat. They also have a lighter colored belly, because if you were a fish that's looking up at the turtle as it's swimming on the surface, you'll see that lighter color, and that will blend in with the bright sky. If a bird flying overhead is looking down into the dark pond, they won't be able to see the turtle as well because it has that camouflaged color. Are you going to show us your feet?
Not that beat.
Yeah,
one of the most common creation myths, like legend about turtles, and it's something that is in our culture here in Michigan, is that they carry the world on their back because they have this sort of reputation for being easygoing and strong and slow and steady. The definite kind of animal you would like to carry the earth on its back. So there's just countless cultures across the globe that have this same creation myth. It's kind of funny. We saw the turtle, we thought the same thing. But I do think it's cool because sometimes in history and in culture, there are things that are still prevalent in your life today, right? It's part of your culture for a reason. And I always get a chuckle when I hear Mackinac Island. It's a great tourist vacation spot. I've never been. Have you been? Mm-hmm. I've never been to Mackinac Island. But what I really appreciate about Mackinac Island is in the native language of the indigenous people, like the Potawatomi language, Mackinac means snapping turtle. So the name of that island is literally Snapping Turtle Island. I think it's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. All right, so obviously you guys know that Mrs. Sarah showed you one type of a reptile, but there are other types of reptiles out there. There's one that has not a shell on its body to protect it, but it has several like little miniature shells all over its body. Those are called scales. You might know that animals like snakes and lizards have scales on their body. But did you know that you also have scales on your body? Scales are located in exactly 20 places on your body. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Fingernails are the same compound pretty much as scales. There's something in here called keratin, and they use it all over their bodies to protect them instead. So I'm going to warn you, this is a snake that we're going to show you, our cool reptile friend here. Now, this snake has so many cool myths and legends about him because they are very dramatic. Now, Miss Sarah is a very brave person, but she's not so brave as to hold a venomous snake. This is a non-venomous animal. No poison either, right? You're not going to eat snake, right, Sarah? Nope. Good, she's smart. Don't eat poisonous things, guys. But he has no venom, he has no fangs, but he's trying very hard right now to convince you guys he's a cobra. Can you guys see how he's flattening his head just a little bit? The reason he's doing this is because he's an actor. He wants you to convince us to leave him alone. It's a very good act. They actually have ribs in their neck that they can flatten to achieve this look. So now that he knows that Miss Sarah is not going to hurt him, he's calming down a little bit. Now, if Miss Sarah was the mean kind of naturalist and was bugging the snake too much, it has a few other tricks up its sleeve. It can also play dead, which is pretty effective, especially if you're a prey animal. Now, in the wild, there's a predator and a prey relationship. The predator wants to eat the prey, right? And the prey is going to have lots of different tips and tricks and adaptations to prevent getting eaten. And one of the things that lots of animals do is they pretend to be dead. You've heard of playing possum, right? Pretending to be dead works because most predators want a fresh kill. That ensures that it is good to eat, it is safe to eat. So if the snake can effectively act dead, whatever is trying to eat it, maybe a coyote, would leave it alone if it was very convincing. And if that doesn't work, they're going to do two things. Well, they're going to achieve two things with one thing. They're going to make themselves very unappealing. They're going to make themselves taste really bad. They're going to gross out the predator. They can do something called musking. Now, musking is kind of like a chemical pheromone. You can mix it with some poop and some pee, and you can spray it everywhere. You can spray it on that predator so he's grossed out and it will stick to them for a long time. And you can also spray it on your own body so that you don't taste good anymore. So there's 1, 2, 3 cool adaptations that this very dramatic snake can use. He is called a hognose snake, and he has got that name because his nose is very cute and turned up at the end, right? It's not an aesthetic. It is everything on wild animals is there for a reason. That cute turned up nose is going to help him eat his favorite food. Now, this snake is a specialist. It's another fancy way to say that he's a picky eater. Now, I don't know if you're a picky eater, but it's not really an easy lifestyle choice. If you only eat one thing, your life might be a little bit harder when you run out of that one thing. This guy exclusively eats toads, which is one of the reasons why Sarah is holding the snake and not me. Do you remember I was holding a toad earlier? Because he uses that amazing tongue that is coming out, that forked tongue that's coming out, to smell the environment around him. And if he can smell the toad, he can track it down using that tongue in an organ in the roof of his mouth called a Jacobson organ. And he can use the forked part of his tongue. If the toad smell is on the left, he's going to go to the left. If the toad smell is on the right, he's going to go to the right. So I lead him. It's like GPS for dinner, right? It's pretty effective. And then he can use his cute turned up nose to turn over rocks or leaves or twigs or sand to get it out of his way so he can get to his dinner. Now, toads are really hard to eat. Remember we talked about the pea and the floating, pulling up full of air. He has a special trick about that too. There are several snakes that have a saliva that makes some amphibians kind of go numb, so they can't fight back as much. And he has 2 really cool modified rear teeth. Now, all snakes have teeth. When you're a non-venomous snake, your teeth are small and curved, and its only purpose is to help you shove the food in your mouth because you don't have hands, right? But he has 2 in the back that are longer and a little thing-like, but no venom in them. And you can use those cool teeth to pop toads. How's that going there, Sarah? Very wiggly. So my guess is that Miss Sarah is nice and warm, right? She produces her own heat, and he's been sitting in that container waiting for this exciting program today. And as he gets the warmth from Sarah, he's getting more energy. You might have noticed he's flattened his neck again. Pretty cool. It looks pretty convincingly like a cobra. This snake is full of neat adaptations and behaviors. Now, there are lots of snake myths out there that all snakes are bad. They're actually very important for our ecosystem. They're an important part of the predator-prey food chain. Most snakes are responsible for controlling the rodent population in the world. I don't know if you know this, but rodents are kind of gross. And they are also mammals, and they can give us diseases. I can't get any diseases from him because he's a reptile, and I'm a mammal. But I can get a disease, like the plague, from a mouse or a rat. So I think I'd rather have snakes. Also, there are some funny stories. There's a cool snake called a milk snake, and it's got its name because one day it went into a barn, and then the next day the cow stopped producing milk. So that farmer just assumed the snake stole the milk. I think you all know that's not true. They like to eat rodents. He went into his barn because there were mice to eat. There's also stories about snakes giving live birth through their mouths. I think it might be a theory that forms some. There are some crazy frogs out there that will put their young defenseless tadpoles or young frogs in their bodies to protect them, like in their air sacs, and then throw up their babies. Did I scare you? I think I scared you. But that's not what happens with snakes. There are some snakes like garter snakes and copperheads. Yeah, we don't have those here though. That can give live birth. It's really cool. They actually hold the eggs inside their body and they hatch inside the body and then come out. So some snakes do give live birth. Most of them lay the eggs, leave the babies, that sort of thing. So there's just always some funny mistruths that come out when you see something weird, you don't understand what you're seeing, and you like kind of make up your best guess, right? My favorite is in the South. There's some snakes that are called the whip snakes, and they believe that they will take their head and bite their own tail and then roll like a hoop down a hill because it's more effective than slithering. I don't get it. But I'm guessing that myth came from a really cool snake called a king snake. They're called the king snake because they're the king of the snakes and they like to eat other snakes, even venomous ones. They're immune to the venom. That's pretty cool. But he probably saw like a snake inside of the king snake getting eaten, and just it was probably writhing around because it didn't want to get eating, and he thought it was, you know, a new type of snake locomotion. Not true. All right, so that's a pretty good look. I like his pattern a lot. I think a lot of people see that pattern and also think they're looking at a rattlesnake. In Michigan, we do. We're very lucky. We only have one venomous snake in Michigan, and it's called the Massasauga Rattlesnake. Sometimes people here call it the Michigan rattler, but it does live in other states. And they're hard to find. You don't just see those in your backyard unless you happen to live in a bog, or a bed, which is a type of wetland. All right, so we've gotten to see two types of turtles and one really cool snake in the reptile family. Let's see. Yes, let's switch it up. Our next group of animals, I wonder if you can guess, it doesn't have metamorphosis. It produces its own body heat, and it's covered in a very multi-purpose body covering. This body covering allows them to stay warm, to stay dry, to change their body shape, and to fly. That's not a bat, which is a mammal. We're going to show you a bird. Now, the bird that we have is a bird of prey, which is a fancy way to say birds that eat other things, and not always meat. Sometimes they eat insects. The bird I want to show you is an owl. And in Michigan, again, we are super lucky, but there are 11 different owl species in Michigan. Let's quiz Miss Andrea. Does she know all the owls in Michigan? So this is our biggest, this is from weight, biggest to smallest. So this is a great gray, snowy, great horns, barred, hawk owl, barn owl, long-eared owl, short-eared owl, boreal owl, but I always say it wrong, boreal owl, eastern screech owl, and saw-whet owl. Did I get an A+? A+ for me. Yeah. So this next owl has a lot of interesting stories about it based on its appearance. So we know never to judge something by its appearance, but it has so many cool legends. Let me get this animal out for you guys. All right, here we go. Wow, look at that. This is a barn owl. He was kind of on the lower half of that list because you can tell he is a smaller size owl. And right away, he doesn't have that standard, typical owl shape. He's not big and poofy and round. He's got a body that kind of even looks like a crow-sized body, very slimming with the long legs. And then he's got these long, super high wing ratio to body wings here. Now, barn owl is called a barn owl because he likes to live in condos. No, I'm kidding. He likes to live in barns, obviously. Barns are chock full of things to eat, and I don't mean your corn or your wheat. He likes the rodents who are there to eat your crops. He also likes to spend a lot of time in the fields surrounding your barn. If I turn around, you can see that this guy is perfectly camouflaged for living in fields. Looks just like a field. Now, I'm going to set the scene. This is the legend. As soon as barns started popping up, they took advantage of that free habitat to live in so close to their favorite place to hunt. So as North America started to get colonized, barn owls started to pop up in barns. Imagine you're a farmer. You're going to go check on your cow, Betsy, your favorite cow, and it's late at night. It's 1 in the morning. You're walking out to check on Betsy, and as soon as you open the door, you see kind of like a white thing rustling way up in the rafters. If you look, her underside is very white. And then you hear a sound you have never heard before. It sounds like this. That is not your typical owl sound. You always have been taught in all the cartoons and books and stories, owls make a hooting noise. But this bird does not hoot, he screams. He screams very loud. And so if you saw a white thing coming at you very slowly, because they don't fly very fast, and when they do fly, their soft feathers allow them to fly almost silently, and then it screams at you, you are going to assume that you're looking at a ghost, obviously. So the very first nickname was the ghost owl. And it is a nice name. They have some other nicknames, though. I like Sweetheart Owl a lot. They have a really cool adaptation on their face. It's a heart shape. If you look at the camera for me right now, that'd be great. Look at the camera. Look at the camera. Here's heart shape. Ooh, heart shaped face. That face plate, you guys, is full of structural feathers that help funnel sound to his ears, so that when it is dark outside, like it does do, they can locate their prey by sound. Also, because of one of their behaviors, they have that cute heart-shaped face, and then when they are sort of chilling out, observing, hearing things around them, you might start to shake your head a little bit. Yeah, just like that. We're just chilling. It's very therapeutic. He's doing this for two reasons. One is to help him with his binocular vision, so he can make sure he can see depth of field, how far away things are from him. The other is to help him use those big lobe of a faceplate to collect sounds and funnel them into his ear. So he's super observant. So he has a long list of adaptations that makes this animal one of the best hunters in the world. They're famous for being the most silent flyers. They have extra soft feathers. And they're also really famous for being the best listeners. And I don't mean to your problems. I mean for hunting. So barn owl, beautiful bird. All right, I feel like now, we could just hang out with the barn owl. I feel like now would be, Mr. Greg, a great time to try and answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Can you guys hear me again? I have my mic on. Yeah, we actually don't have any questions from our viewers, but I have the eastern hognose. I once had an encounter with one of those in my backyard, and I was just back there, and this snake came at me like this, and I thought that it was a king cobra, and said it had escaped from someone. So it was interesting to see that up close and personal. But anyways, no questions right now. A wonderful presentation, and I will look forward to seeing you next year live. Do you have any more presentations at KDL this year? Or is this
year?
on the live stream?
We do. We're
Okay.
there's a large staff, and we're all doing different things, so I don't know off the top of my head which are coming up, but I know we're doing more for you guys.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you as always so much. And remember, everybody, you can visit the Outdoor Discovery Center in Holland. You see the website out there, lots of trails. Birds of prey are always out, and they are always open. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Don't forget to go to kdl.org. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.